So I've been thinking about what the whole point of me making these videos on YouTube is about. I enjoy exercising, so that's why I was making videos about exercising. I only make like $30 and I think it's like $31 and some change an hour at the job that I have. So that's why I liked making videos about what it's like to work out as a poor man. And I might make more videos about that, other things about life, being like a poor guy, stuff like that. But the name of my channel is the Pacific Northwest, and I don't think I could have my channel be named that without talking about why it's named that. And it's because of the religion that I practice, which is what commonly referred to as Norse paganism. I don't really like the word pagan or heathen or infidel, which I'll get into in a little bit, but I really do like the channel Survive the Drive. I think all the stuff that this guy posts is great, and he posted this video recently, and so I wanted to talk about the things that I agree with it and the things that I don't agree with it. First off, let's watch it because I think this beginning part is funny as shit, and then we'll go from there.
How to be a heathen, then the good news is there's loads of free content on the internet to teach you how to do it. Content like this kind of thing.
Namaste, children of Odin. My name is Starchild Frey's daughter. I was initiated into an ancient line of Norse Volver at Burning Man Festival in 2015. Since then, I have been dedicated to teaching others how
He
to
like makes
understand
vulva
the
male by
ways
putting an R
of
at
the
the end
ancient
of it.
ones. Listen to the earth. Listen to the sky.
He's also a daughter.
Hear the words of the gods on the wind.
Shut up. Oh, maybe that's not the best thing to look at. Or how about something like this?
When you're getting started in heathenry, you can easily come across misinformation on the internet because there are some bad actors out there. And they're trying to sell you some pretty problematic views. So you've got to be able to parse
This reminds me of
what's
that stupid
problematic from
channel
what's
Wisdom of
serious.
Odin.
Another thing is some people will say there's one way of doing things and you gotta do it their way. Well, sometimes you just
Or like
gotta
that guy
find
Ocean.
out for yourself what feels right. The All-Father will lead you no matter who you are, because heathenry is an inclusive religion and it's for everybody. I don't believe anyone who tells you different.
That's not much good either. What about this?
Nay, actually, don't listen to those cucks. Listen to me, Ragnar Genocide Odinson. I'll teach you how to be a real Viking Norseman heathen with these simple tips. First, you must live like me in the woods. Just as the animals, just as the gods intended. Running through the forest like a beast. That is the only way to learn. Next, you must master the sword.
Okay. I gotta be honest with you. When I first started like watching videos or like reading books about Norse paganism, like this is kind of the thing that attracted me to it. A bunch of guys in the military are like pagan and stuff like that, and that's how I first kind of like. Well, I don't want to say that's how I first kind of got into it, but that's when I first met a lot of other people that were into it. And then, since we're like had deployed to Iraq and stuff, the whole idea of being a berserker, or like, you know, a battle hardened warrior and all that stuff. You know, like, yeah, not some pacifist Christian or like, or whatever, you know. Um, but yeah, this stuff is hilarious because you run into this dumb stuff all the time, and they're always trying to tell you how to be a Norse pagan or a Norse heathen, or how to practice it the right way, and so I want to skip ahead and get into what he's talking about, because even though I like survive the drive, this is one of the things that I kind of can't stand with all these guys on YouTube. I mean, I also like Norse magic and beliefs, but this guy over here, this channel, but he also does this same thing also. These guys talk about their degrees in like history or some malarkey that has to do with Norse paganism or literature or something, and then they say that I'm the one that you need to listen to about how to practice this religion and blah blah blah. And so that's what I'm going to skip ahead to right here.
Psychology, all kinds of topics that are very interesting, but don't actually tell you how to be a heathen. People often just want to know how. What do I actually have to do day to day? How do I conduct rituals? And if you actually perform an internet search on how to perform heathen rituals, 90% of the content is complete rubbish that comes up. It's just stuff people made up. So they're really...
I completely agree with him right there. I mean, he's completely right. You find a bunch of dumb malarkey that people make up.
There's a huge gap in the market for some clear, direct information that's not too time consuming, that explains succinctly how to be a heathen for people who are starting off in the Germanic pagan religion. That's why my course, Starting Heathenry, is essential. Not only does it include over 50 videos on various topics that are essential for starting heathenry, but it's based on a micro-learning strategy, which has been proven in multiple studies to be the most efficient method of learning in terms of being able to recall the information you've learned. One study found it was 18% more effective than alternative methods. Another study found it was up to 80% more effective for retaining the information.
All right, so you get the point. Basically, what he's doing is, sorry, I didn't mean to make you look stupid while I pause the video there, because
You've learned.
You're a stupid guy. So there we go. There's a little better spot to pause it. Because, you know, what he's talking about is he's talking about using his educational background and all of his knowledge and the time that he has spent making these videos, and like his large video library, and why he's an authority on why you should listen to him on how to practice being a Norse heathen. The reason I don't like that is because it reminds me of like when I used to go to church growing up, or it reminds me of the Catholics that I had. I used to have my daughter in a Catholic school, and it reminds me of how the Catholics practice their religion. This guy, he's going to tell you when to do a blot and how to pronounce a word and when to celebrate Yule and for how long, and you need to do it like this. This is how they did it 1,000 years ago. It's like, okay, bro, that's you sound like you remind me of the Christians that used to bitch and moan at me about have you accepted Jesus into your heart yet? Well, until you do that, you're not a Christian yet. You need to accept Jesus and the Holy Spirit into your heart before you can be a Christian. And this guy's he's talking about, you know, this is, if you want to be a real heathen, these are the things that you need to do. Go do this rite. Go do this ritual. Go perform this blot on you know, the spring equinox or the summer solstice, or during the winter solstice. You know, do this. Uh, and like it reminds me of the Catholics that my daughter would go to school with, who the most they did to be a Catholic was put some ash on their forehead during Ash Wednesday, or give up uh, give up drinking beer during Lent or something like that. Or they're like, oh, I don't drink coffee during Lent. Oh, that's what I'm giving up. I'm like, oh, what a great sacrifice you've done to prove you're a Catholic. Uh, and that's what he's talking about. He's talking about doing like these rites and rituals, and when it's like, and like this dude over here that does Norse magic and beliefs, he talks about these really historical, accurate ways to practice the faith, and I'm like, bro, it's not 1,000 years ago. Like, if your kid's in public school, they're getting 2 weeks off for winter vacation, and then the day that I get off during the winter vacation, I get Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off from work. So that's when I have to celebrate Yule. I don't get to do it on the actual like the actual full moon of whichever. Like I'd have to, and then that's another thing. You don't have all these dates memorized. Like I'm going to, I might go out on the full moon during December, or because then they're like, oh, it's the full moon of January when you celebrate Yule. Okay, whatever. Like I also probably work the next morning. Well, I work swing shift, but you know what I mean. Like you don't. Our schedule isn't needs to like the way we practice this religion needs to be cohesive with our schedule. And like if these guys are like YouTubers that don't have a normal schedule, so if they want to celebrate it how it was celebrated 1,000 years ago, then they can do that. But it's like, like for the spring equinox, it's like, bro, I get Easter off. Like that's the day we get given off from work. And Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon of the spring equinox. Like that's how it's, and so like I don't actually get the spring equinox off. So I get to celebrate the spring equinox on the day that I get given off from work. Like I'm subject to the federal holidays that I get given off. So when it comes to being a modern Norse heathen, and you're wondering, how do I practice this? What do I do to be a Norse heathen? I would tell you to just get a copy of the Poetic Edda. For a modern contemporary translation, I would suggest Jackson Crawford, and I'd get a copy of his Wanderer's Havamal, because you'll find the Havamal in his translation of the Poetic Edda, but then get his copy of the Havamal that stands by itself, the Wanderer's Havamal, and it has the Old Norse in it side by side with his translation of it into contemporary English. And I would tell you, read that on a daily basis, and then over time, you will see how you can apply the lessons of the Havamal and from the sagas into your daily life. It's all about that half loaf of bread and tilted bowl that you offer to your friend. And if you've read the Havamal, then you know what I'm talking about. It's about taking what's talked about in the Havamal and applying it to your daily practical life. And you want to be a heathen, you're wondering what you should do, that's what you should do. You're not going to be a heathen by putting on some stupid robe and grabbing a branch off of a Douglas fir and going and getting some pig's blood, or making some red dyed water and having a stupid bowl and doing a blot on the spring equinox. That's not going to make you that's the dumb shit that used to annoy me when I used to go to church. They'd be like, wave the flags and sing the songs and put your hands up in the air and praise the Lord. I'm like, I don't care about that. Can't I just do like what Jesus talked about on the Sermon on the Mount, and just like be a good, decent person? And like, for anybody that's like, oh, listen to this pagan talking about making Christian references. Well, I was raised a Christian, so most of the religious references I'm going to make are of Christianity. And, like Odin himself, he wanders around the world looking for wisdom and giving it to men. So I'm pretty sure if Odin happened to wander across Jesus during his travels, he would sit down and have a talk with him about things they both thought were wise. And Odin would try to learn something from Jesus. He wouldn't convert to Christianity, but he would say that Jesus was a wise dude, and he would challenge him in a discussion about wisdom. The reason that I don't like the terms heathen and stuff like that is because heathen is just an old English, it's an old English origin. The term heathen comes from the old English word heathen, which means someone who is not a Christian, Jew, or Muslim. It's Proto-Germanic roots. Heidans is thought to originate from Heides, meaning hearth or home, and is related to the concept of heath, a tract of uncultivated land. Thus, heathen could have originally referred to people who lived on the heath, on the earth, away from urban Christian settlements, and who continued to follow old pre-Christian ways. So it just means you're not a Christian. That's one of the reasons I don't like it. And also because it's used as a derogatory way by Christians, like, you're a filthy heathen. The reason I don't like the word pagan, pagan comes from a Latin term. Pagan comes from a Latin word paganus. It originally meant country dweller or villager, so it's related to meaning countryside or rural district. It's also used in a negative sense because the people that lived in the country or the rural areas weren't as educated or as civilized as the people that lived inside the towns and cities. And so, during the early Christianity, the spread of Christianity, particularly in the Roman Empire, the term paganus took on the religious connotation. Christianity initially spread more rapidly in urban areas, while rural areas, the pagus, were slower to convert. Consequently, paganus began to be used to refer to people who adhered to traditional polytheistic religions. And I'm sure Metatron would hate my pronunciation of these Latin words. I'm sorry, Metatron. I love your channel too. And it's the same thing with like the word infidel. There's another Latin word. The Muslims used to scream this at us while we were in Iraq. I thought it was funny that they were screaming a Latin word at us instead of some like Arabic word. But infidel, the prefix in meaning not, and fidelis meaning faithful or loyal. So it means that you're not faithful. And it's in reference to whatever the person is talking about. So since these Muslims were calling us infidels, they were saying that we weren't faithful to their religion. So Christians would call people of other faiths infidels also. I mean, it's a Latin word. So the Romans were calling, polytheistic people or pagans or heathens, whatever you want to call us. The Germanic tribes, we're calling them infidels. So basically, that's what I think about all that stuff. if you want to know how to be a real Norse heathen, just read the Havamal and the poetic Edda and try to surmise a lesson from the sagas and try to practice the lessons taught in the Havamal, told about in the Havamal in your daily life. And as time goes on, you will have a natural inclination for a stanza from the Havamal to pop into your head, and then you will just start acting like a heathen. Have a good night.